One of my favorite directors is Stanley Kubrick, who used the medium of film to tell visually stunning and fascinating stories, often about the need for humanity in a seemingly cold world. He only directed 13 feature films in his lifetime, but still managed to build up an impressive filmography with multiple classics. And I've decided to reveal my personal top 10 favorites. These are movies I found myself revisiting on occasion and once again marveling at the incredible vision he brought to the screen, whether awe-inspiring or terrifying. The Killing. Stanley Kubrick had directed two smaller films before this, Fear and Desire and Killer's Kiss, and there were glimpses of his talent in those works. However, it was with The Killing they started to truly garner attention, and for good reason. A unique take on the heist film, Kubrick cleverly shows every piece of the puzzle as the criminals plot to steal $2 million. Through its lean, 85-minute runtime, Kubrick makes sure we get invested in their lives, especially the lead protagonist played by Sterling Hayden. He especially uses the horse track setting to good effect as he jumps between the various participants. The Killing is also an example of doing a lot with a small budget. It all leads to an ending that I won't spoil for you, but has gotten an audible reaction from me every time I watch it. And I don't often react that way to watching movies unless it's a comedy. Full Metal Jacket. War is a frequent setting in Kubrick's work, and he seemed especially interested in exploring the ramifications on soldiers thrust onto the battlefield. Full Metal Jacket is essentially a film in two parts, and both are certainly engaging. The most talked about are the boot camp scenes, which Kubrick uses to touch on the way soldiers are treated by their drill sergeants. R. Lee Ermey's Sergeant Hartman is someone who is easy to hate as he torments the soldiers under his command, and Ermey's ad-libbed rants provide a high point of his performance. Vincent D'Onofrio also gives a chilling performance of the recruit who's pushed a little too far. In the second half, Kubrick depicts the brutality of the Vietnam War and shows how casually the soldiers appear to treat it. The battle scenes exist not to thrill, but to show how bloody and scary the whole experience of being at war is. Full Metal Jacket was one of several Vietnam movies to come out in the 80s, but Kubrick was nonetheless able to put his own stamp and perspective on the conflict. Barry Lyndon, an over 3-hour costume drama set in 18th century Europe, could have come across as dry, but leave it to Stanley Kubrick to make it something biting. There's an intrigue as the titular character attempts to climb the social ladder, and like his other movies, Kubrick is open to portraying the moral flaws of his lead protagonist. What is most striking about Barry Lyndon is how it uses camera and lighting. I cannot think of another film that captures the look of classic paintings as well as this one, with several frames looking like they were drawn by the great art masters of the time period. Kubrick was known for his attention to detail, and in fact, part of what led to the creation of this film was the incredible amount of research he put together for a Napoleon movie that never happened. Barry's exploits managed to skewer upper-class society while also exploring his deceitful actions, and as played by Ryan O'Neal, he becomes someone who is fascinating to watch through the lengthy runtime. On its initial release, Barry Lyndon was criticized for being boring and just being a series of pretty images, but I think the movie absolutely has enough on its mind and a sharp enough wit to avoid being those things. Paths of Glory. A gripping World War I film, this movie sought to explore what it means to be brave and cowardly and the decisions one has to make on the battlefield when human lives are on the line. Kubrick stages the war scenes brilliantly, but most of the film actually consists of conversations as characters debate what to do with the soldiers who await their ultimate fate. Kirk Douglas gives possibly the best performance of his career as the commanding officer pleading to spare the lives of these soldiers, while George McReady makes the general into someone truly despicable. Like his other work, Kubrick uses the camera to fantastic effect to explore his characters and the decisions rattling in their heads. Kubrick is often been referred to as a cold director, but his movies were often about the importance of retaining one's humanity, especially in destructive environments. Paths of Glory is one of those films that best showcases this, especially the final scene. I think it definitely stands as one of the best movies about the First World War. Lolita. Adapting Vladimir Nabokov's controversial book, Kubrick later said he would have never tried to make the movie if he knew the headaches the film censors would have put him through. However, the poisonous behavior of James Mason's perverted professor is still apparent, and the film is able to depict his gross actions towards the titular character. Lolita is famous for being the story of an older man who becomes infatuated with a teenage girl, but the movie never once portrays this as something heartwarming. Instead, we see Humbert become more controlling on this young girl and forcing her into his preferred image of her. Kubrick's sympathies lie completely with Lolita as she deals with everything thrown away and attempts to escape it. The film also makes excellent use of Peter Sellers, who continually messes with Humbert in every one of their meetings, and adds to his continuing paranoia. The result is a smart script that successfully explores its tricky themes with the needed depth and right attitude that avoids turning into something more exploitative. The Shining. Kubrick took Stephen King's novel about a writer dealing with his alcoholism in a haunted hotel, and while he departed from the story, much to the author's dissatisfaction, it's still an unsettling and unforgettable horror movie. There's something unnerving about the overlook, with Kubrick and his Steadicam moving through the hallways as we follow this family. Whether it's the changing state of Jack Torrance or his son Danny coping with his psychic abilities, The Shining does an exceptional job of seeing how the characters react to their new surroundings. It's a unique take on the typical ghost story, slowly building up Jack, becoming more murderous, and culminating with him chasing his wife and son with an axe. The use of Wendy Carlo's creepy music adds to the mood of the film, and the production design for the Overlook turns it into one of the most iconic interior sets in cinema history. The Shining had Stanley Kubrick entering a genre he had not done before, and is an example of his incredible skill at jumping into any kind of movie and making it his own. Dr. Strangelove, or How He Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. One of the sharper satires ever made, Dr. Strangelove was able to take a subject as serious as possible nuclear annihilation and turn it into a comedy. The fact that he did it in the middle of the Cold War makes it all the more remarkable. Casting Peter Sellers in multiple roles was a genius move, resulting in 3 fantastic performances and some of his best work. For me, one of the funniest scenes of the film is the lengthy telephone conversation the President of the United States has with the Soviet premier, where we only hear the President's side as he tries to explain the situation. Then there's his manic role as the Nazi working for the government and who has strange plans for when the nuclear fallout occurs. However, Sellers is not the only actor who impresses, as George C. Scott is equally hilarious as the general also trying to make sense of it all. Kubrick is able to highlight the absurdity of the whole deal and the roles of countries during the Cold War through some striking images and the excellent production design by Ken Adam. Dr. Strangelove has earned its place as one of the best comedies of all time, and for good reason. The most famous line from the movie is, "You can't fight in here, this is the war room," and that says it all right there. Eyes Wide Shut. The last film Kubrick directed, he really went out with a bang on this one. A fascinating exploration of marriage and the allure of sexual fantasies, he takes the audience and Tom Cruise's Dr. Bill Harford on a dreamlike journey that tests him. Any normal person would nope right out of that situation, but Bill cannot help but be curious about this secret society he learns about. Most of the film mostly involves following him on this nighttime stroll through New York City, and to think all of this really starts moving because of a late-night conversation between Bill and his wife. Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman successfully played the dynamic of this husband and wife as they deal with the revelations they learn about each other. Then there's the society itself with many mysteries, and even by the end, we're not entirely trusting of everything we're told about this mass gala and the orgy Bill witnesses. With Eyes Wide Shut, Kubrick wanted to take the viewer into a strange underworld inhabited by the wealthy and created an intriguing sex-filled odyssey. What a way to cap off his career. A Clockwork Orange. Certainly the most shocking film he ever made, Kubrick did a mostly faithful adaptation of Anthony Burgess's book and crafted a thought-provoking film about free will and violence among youth. What drives someone to do such horrendous things? Is there a way to rehabilitate them and drive it out of them? Should they be given a choice in the matter? These are all fascinating questions that the film expertly seeks to answer when telling the story of Alex. Kubrick made excellent use of the English locations to craft the strange, futuristic world of A Clockwork Orange, and is able to take Burgess's invented language of NADZAC and have it be easily understandable on the screen. Michael McDowell delivers an unforgettable performance as Alex, depicting him as gleeful as he commits these horrible acts, also showing the layers within the character, especially after he's given an experimental treatment. A Clockwork Orange is a disturbing piece of work, but that's key in showing the deranged activities of Alex and his droogs, and Kubrick made sure none of the images would leave the viewer's head after viewing. And my number one favorite Stanley Kubrick movie is 2001, A Space Odyssey. This is the first Kubrick film I ever watched, and even though I did not entirely understand it, I was nonetheless mesmerized by the images and its depiction of a future where all kinds of space travel are possible. Revisiting it several years later, 2001 instantly shot up to being one of my all-time favorites. What stands out the most about the movie is the way Kubrick so brilliantly combined the amazing visual effects with classical music. Every scene works, he transports us to outer space and the various spacecrafts. Of course, it all starts on Earth many thousand years ago, as Kubrick depicts the dawn of man, the arrival of the strange monolith, and the first use of a violent weapon. Each segment serves an important purpose in showing humankind's place within the larger universe and also how we use machines. The most compelling character in the entire movie ends up being HAL 9000. His plan to eventually kill off his crew provides a chilling portion of the film. It all culminates in a series of arresting images and an ending that will certainly leave one thinking long after you've finished watching the movie. 2001, A Space Odyssey is among the most influential science fiction films of all time, and this happened thanks to Stanley Kubrick's incredible imagination, along with his co-writer Arthur C. Clarke and the visual effects team led by Douglas Trumbull. As you can see, Kubrick made a lot of fantastic movies, but 2001 is what I consider to be his masterpiece. Now let me know in the comments what your favorite Stanley Kubrick movie is, and I'll see you next time.